This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
It's the Dirty Laundry Game-Worn Hockey Podcast.
We're old school, right? We wash our own dirty laundry.
The name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back.
I refuse to be judged by a grown man wearing a hockey jersey.
Game on!
Game on!
We are back with another great episode of the Dirty Laundry Game-Worn Hockey Podcast, episode number 110. We are climbing through the numbers. Ran our numbers the other day for people listening, and again, thank you. Over almost 31,000 listens across all the different podcast stuff. We don't have a ton of followers in that, and I'm okay with that because the other numbers are great. But again, I'll plug it at the end too. Please tell your friends, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. I did check us out on some like different lists, and we're in the top 100 in Finland, and somewhere else in Europe. I want to try to get in the US and Canada in the top 100 for podcasts. So I thought that was kind of cool. It's on the Apple podcast side anyway. Want to welcome Logan Stevens joining us this evening. We'll have a fun conversation with him. So we do appreciate you joining us from the East Coast.
Good to be here.
So the drink for this evening, little Weller Special Reserve for my old fashioned, an always enjoyable drink. So cheers to everybody.
Cheers.
We are working on, and Paul had seen this on the was it Discord group or the
I'm assuming what you're referring to was the Discord group. Yes.
Yes, a Dr. Pepper hockey jersey. So we're trying to see if we can track another one down for Wade because it looked awesome. Even the jersey was even the right color.
I would love to have it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's definitely up my alley.
It was beautiful.
Yes.
And
Speaking of drinks and things, our man Mitch with the Drink Your Face Off lines of barware and clothing. We are still in the 90s here in Central Illinois, but very soon hoodies will be coming out. So if you need any of that stuff, please reach out to Mitch. Paul, you got a little expo info, please.
yeah, let me move to that tab real quick. So just going to a quick rundown of all the shows coming up. We won't talk too much about many of them. September 27th, the next one, that's the South Jersey Expo. What we did not know last week, there's a date for the Minnesota Game-Worn Collectors Expo, and that is now October 12th, 2025. Then, and all the details of all these expos are on opert.com. You can click on the Game-Worn Expos group, Game-Worn Expos tab, and everything's there. We have a special page for the West Coast shows for San Jose, LA, and Vegas. Then the big show in St. Louis, October 18th and 19th. Wade, do you want to add anything new happening for that one?
Everything's coming together smoothly. I think people are getting hooked up. I've got a room block set up. If anybody wants to come in and needs a room, we got that set up and just raring to go.
And by the way, for that, I'm assuming it's the same, probably around the same pricing for hotel rooms as it was last year.
Like right around like $120 a night.
So if you go on that hotel site to book rooms, it is 250 plus.
Yeah.
So you have a steal. So anybody doing that coming, make sure you call and get the expo rate because it is double otherwise. So that is, I happen to just check to see that and saw that and lost it.
Yeah, it's good deal and nice place. We're all fun. I'm excited about it.
There's an expo in November too, isn't there? I thought I just saw it pop up through my feed today. Unless I'm thinking dates wrong.
Oh no, you're probably talking about the Hershey Expo.
Yes.
So November 15th is expo date on the East Coast and Midwest. November 15th is the Detroit show, the Chicago show, and the Hershey show. They're far enough apart. Hopefully they'll get great crowds and should be a fun day. I'm looking forward to reports from that day. I don't have anything scheduled for December yet. Hopefully someone will post something later today with December. Then we move to January, and January 31st is our big show in San Jose. We've been selling a lot of tables and tickets to the Barracuda game that night. So that's starting to look really good. We still have tables left, but if you are thinking of going and wanting a table, please reach out to either me or Mitch, and let's get you registered and paid for that one. March 7th is Winnipeg. I can't remember if we had the date or not for that last week, but should be another great show up there in Winnipeg. March 14th is the official date for Los Angeles. That's at the Embassy Suites in Arcadia, which is near Pasadena. Riley and Melly are currently taking reservations and payments. Tables are $100 till the end of October, then they go to $125. The room is huge and the facility looks great. We will, right now, the advertising for it is basically just to people who were there last year or in the LA Expo Facebook group. And it will be pushed out to everyone, I believe, on Monday. But they've already had a number of people sign up for tables, and that should be another great show. March 28th is Nova. Francis always does a great job, and I don't know if he has tables left or not, but if you're in the area, it's worthwhile checking out. And then the big show, April 11th in Vegas. We're getting a lot of people signing up for tables. A lot of people staying at New York, which is going to be great. We have two rates for the table. One, if you're staying at New York, or another MGM property, and a different rate if you're not staying there. So 125 if you're staying at New York, 175 if you are not. We have all the details on that on the Opert site. We're starting to get close to filling up the first room, and if that is the case, there's another room right next to it we can add. Wow. So we still have space to grow, and last year's Frozen 4 Expo was so much fun, and I keep getting comments on Facebook Messenger and email about other people who were there asking other questions about it, and it was just such a great time. And I'm looking forward to it. In related news, Western Michigan released their new jerseys for this season. So I unfortunately don't have a link to that. They are really, really sharp.
They're cool. I saw those.
Yeah. And if Michigan's not there, I'd be happy that Western Michigan is there again. Because Denver's going to be there. So
yes, definitely.
Yeah. And I think that's about it for Expo. If you have any additions, please reach out to me on Facebook, email, carrier pigeon. I don't care. Just get the message to me and we'll get it on the site and we'll discuss it here.
The only auction stuff news currently out there right now is Classic Auctions. That does end in 5 days. They did put out an official email and notification on their position regarding tariffs. I'll read it as the whole letter because it's not that big. It says, "Dear clients, with our September 2025 auction closing shortly, we wanted to make sure to clarify our position regarding the tariffs on collectibles and sports memorabilia we export to our U.S.-based customers. Following careful consultation with our legal advisors and custom brokers, and after a thorough review of the documents published by the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol and the Canada Border Service Agency, we have determined that almost all the items we offer at auction are USMCA agreement compliant and are exempt from tariffs when exported into the United States of America. We would highly encourage our U.S.-based bidders to contact us directly at info@classicauctions.net with any questions regarding tariffs on specific items. Daily business operations, including import-exporting goods, are continuing as usual and will remain committed to serving your needs. Furthermore, if you're considering consigning to one of our auctions and have any questions, please note there are presently no tariffs when sending the items on consignment to us in Canada." So, yeah, if you are bidding on stuff and are unsure, email them to get that info. Like I say, just 5 days left in that auction. But I at least appreciate that they put that out there and trying to be proactive. I know, and I don't remember if I mentioned this last week's show or the one before that because my brain all runs together. But I know every Canadian NHL team with their auctions and stuff are not shipping to the U.S., period. When Ottawa's last auction finished, that was it. They said they were done. And I know I've had different people reach out about every single team, and none of them are shipping.
And if I remember correctly, Ottawa charged like 35%
Yes,
additional for US sales.
that they did.
Yeah.
Um,
So I do appreciate Mark, putting out that statement and stuff. I'll just say it really sucks that he has to do that.
right. I don't disagree.
I hate the uncertainty, and hopefully this does work and the auction's a big success. But
And again, if you want to say, hey, I'm bidding on this thing, what do you think, or will it be charged? Email him, because if you wait till after you win it and then you get dinged, that's on you. Mark's giving you the opportunity to reach out and say, hey, ask the questions now, because
Mark.
he is putting that right out there. So thank you for doing that. So I, representing quote unquote the Dirty Laundry Game Worn Hockey Podcast, went up to the Bloomington Bison. You've heard me cover those a few different times for things. They had an open house last night to unveil their new jerseys for the upcoming season. And I wish I had better pictures. I'd actually post them. The ones I could get weren't the greatest because of how they were displayed. But they are an affiliate of the New York Rangers. I was surprised last year, because I was at that unveiling as well, that they had no affiliation patches anywhere. They had the New York Rangers color scheme on parts and different things, but no patches. So this year they went all out. One shoulder has the Rangers patch, one shoulder has the Hartford Wolfpack patch on it. And it looks really sharp. They're doing a black for home and a white for road. Of course, then with the East Coast, they will switch them come January. But they are both very sharp jerseys. They did a little mini equipment sale, and I was surprised. I thought the East Coast was all Warrior. I thought they had signed with one equipment company. They hadn't. They had Bauer, they had Warrior, they had CCM. All the logos were taped over across the board, so it was all blacked out. But I did find that was kind of interesting to see that they did that and how. But it's kind of neat to just be at that event. I didn't wait around to hear the coach talk because I didn't care about that piece. But it was neat to be able to go up there, see that stuff, and only being 45 minutes from that team, it is nice to go up and see at least decent level hockey. So
yeah,
nice little visit up there. Something else I mentioned
before you go on,
yeah,
from that, going way back when the San Francisco Bulls were here. It was the same type situation. Year one, they did not have a Sharks affiliate patch on the shoulders. Year two, or I guess half of year two, they did end up having the Sharks patch put on the shoulder, which was a nice touch. So I don't know if it's an ECHL thing. I don't know if the affiliate last year came in too late to do it.
I know Greensboro is like that this year. The new Canes affiliate, they don't have any affiliation patch on it.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think it's
maybe it is a first year.
Yeah, I think if it falls, I think it falls back probably, especially on those new teams, to maybe not having a real good pulse on it, and then probably hearing about it all year, right? Like where somebody goes, "Hey, why don't you have a Rangers patch on the shoulder?" Right? I mean, I know that we talked about that with the Bison jerseys. Doc and I both saying like, "Man, they didn't have an inaugural patch on them. Like, what a missed opportunity!" Right? So. I think that has a lot to do with maybe who your equipment guy is and who your front office people are and how kind of on pulse they are with what goes on and what collectors are looking for and wanting.
I'll buy it. I have no good explanation. So waits is as good as I can make up.
Exactly what Doc said. When Doc sent me the picture of the Bison one, I was like, oh man, that makes that like last year I didn't get one because it really like the jersey was cool, but it wasn't that thing. But now with the affiliation patches on it, it's like, yeah, man, that like it steps it up to something you kind of want to get your hands on more, in my opinion.
Yeah, one more thing I got to add to my list for this year with the Blues changing all their stuff out. I got to buy one of each of those, and now I need at least a Bison jersey from next year. So
yeah, this is going to be a rough. I may be like, if anybody's looking for a kidney, I may have one available. With the Blues doing what they did, and then our age,
Springfield, yes,
yeah, and I actually just sent you guys a picture. I don't know, Doc, if you can get that up on the screen, but they redid their jerseys and they're beautiful. Yeah. So that's going to be expensive, and then just everything else. It was like it all fell at once, right? Like they couldn't. Both of my teams had to get new jerseys this year. I guess I'll segue into like the kind of things I always try to talk about. I know I think we mentioned last week, Detroit's new jersey is gorgeous. I think they really hit a home run there. I think I did send a picture of that as well. And then it looked like today the Rangers released a 100th anniversary jersey for them. And
Yes,
they're
those are very nice.
beautiful. I mean, very, very like nostalgic and classic. My one takeaway from that was, um, the one thing that we all complained about a little bit with the Blues was the one color numbers and lettering on the back of the jerseys, and they did that with the Rangers jerseys too on these anniversary jerseys. And in some communication I had with people around the teams, the one thing that was said is, it's not just the team that gets to have the input on what the jersey looks like, how they number them, and do all that stuff. I guess the NHL is pretty involved in that as well. Like they try to make determinations on what's going to look best on test jerseys on the ice versus not on the ice, and how they're going to present. So after seeing the Rangers one, the only thing I can think of is maybe they're trying to go with a little bit of single color number, like something a little bit simpler, a little bit more nostalgia. Maybe that's kind of the trend of today, right? Like trying to simplify things a little bit. But yeah, that Rangers jersey is pretty. I love the tone of the blue and a little bit darker, like a little bit more of like a blood red. Just really, really put together nicely. That's a really, really,
And
really
I love
good
that they use Messier for that too, by the way.
Yeah, for
It's a
sure.
great reveal. But
Yeah.
and I think in their case too, with being the 100th anniversary of the team, they fit more with having that one color number because again, if my memory is right, and I'm not that great with Rangers jerseys, way back, that's what they were using was that one color.
It looks, yeah.
It is sharp. I'm also impressed, and I know some people are a little unhappy with it, is the Game 7 ad. It's a great spot. It doesn't take away from the jersey being on the shoulder. If they're going to have an advertising patch, it's a good spot to put it.
I really liked that. That was one thing I wanted to hit on too, was I like the placement of that in the sense that some of these jerseys and a few of these teams, the fronts look really busy with the ad patch. So I hope that maybe this is a new thing that the NHL has said, hey, this sponsor patch can go on the shoulder, right? Because to me, it's a situation that I think there's a few teams, like here, if like you look at like the Florida jerseys, which are great, but like, they've had the problem with the sponsor patch and then the finals patch. And because both of their jerseys have shoulder patches, we've talked about it in the past on the show, maybe you pop off one of the shoulder, patches and you move something up there. Just an option, but I'm glad that they're seeing that shoulder as an option for a patch.
And then going back to Springfield too, real quick. There's the Thunderbirds, their 10th anniversary one. That it's got some of that gold striping, kind of like it reminds me of Vegas. I wondered if it's that same type of material, but
reminds me like the Buffalo jerseys they did.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
So the blue third jersey for Springfield is basically now, I think, going to become their blue jersey. And I have a couple of them, and it is that like rolled gold material that it's really, really, really pretty in person. And that white one, they hit a home run. I got to say the word pretty. I got to say the word pretty on the show. I really like that.
There you go.
Touching my softer side tonight.
Paul, you wanted to touch a little bit more on it, and real quick too. Thank you for. I think it was a really good reception after last week. We had a lot of people appreciating us discussing the Makar jersey and bringing it up and having a good, solid discussion on it. So we do appreciate those comments. And if you didn't like it or thought we should have done stuff better, reach out. We're not gonna get mad at you or whatever. We want the criticism any way it comes. But Paul, you wanted to touch on a few more things before we get into Logan.
Well, I don't really want to, but I think we need to.
Right, yes.
So to be clear on that. So there's been a lot of evidence it's compelling that this Makar jersey was not worn. And we went into a lot of details of it last week. A lot of the details are on the Bad Traders group. There's a lot of comments buried in there. The original photos are in there. A lot of the Getty game images are not, but if you, I know a number of people have gone through them and found a number of unmatches from every period of the 4 games that could have been worn. Just some additional Makar background, well, Avalanche background. They wore that style jersey for 4 games last year. 2 were implied in the LOA. The other 2 were not, but all 4 games have been checked. And we've found a number of unmatches and no evidence of any photos pointing to it being worn, coupled in with the wash tag we talked about and the lack of wear and all that. It was also worn in the All-Star Skills competition and the All-Star photo shoot. Now we know the jersey that we're talking about was not worn there because the auction was before the All-Star game. Plain and simple. And while Makar can do a lot of things, I do not think he can time travel. So
at least not yet. Yeah, at least not yet.
Yeah,
anyway.
not yet. Give him a few more years when he has more Norrises than Bobby Orr. So
my guess is, and I'm just guessing because this is new to me, but if I'm not mistaken, most of the time the skills competition actually have a skills competition patch on the jersey as well.
I honestly, I think you are correct.
Yeah.
I know in the AHL they don't, which I'm more familiar with, but in the NHL, I'm pretty sure
there is
they do.
skills. Yeah, there's a skills competition patch on them, and I'm sure our fact checkers will let me know if I'm wrong for this year. But in the same sense, I do believe I'm correct.
Yeah, send angry messages to Wade, not me. But I think you are correct, and I just didn't look closely into it because it was a moot point. I mean, with the jersey being worn after the auction, and the jersey being shipped. So the consequences of this. Everyone knows who was involved. And I'll say what happened today, Milt has been removed from the main Facebook group and a number of the smaller groups. It's still propagating through some of the other smaller groups. It's every group's decision if they want to keep him or remove him. But with a group of people that have discussed this, we thought his lack of accountability and the issues around this Makar and some other past actions warranted him being removed from the group. And I hate saying that, and I hate that it had to come to this, but
it was not done lightly from anybody.
No, and it sucks that we had to do it. It really does. I don't like that it was done. But many of us felt like we did not have a choice. So I think that I'm done commenting about it. If people have concerns, you can call me, email me, message me, and we can discuss further. I wish that Milt wanted to find a solution. Maybe he does or did, but my impression is that was not the case. I stepping away from the consequences there, Nicholas Virus, and I always mispronounce her name, so don't get mad at me, Nick, has reached out to the Avalanche and gotten some contact information there. It seems like his initial contacts are just like, wait, this isn't right. This shouldn't be happening. And that contact information has been sent to Gordon, and Gordon's contacting the Avalanche. Gordon did reach out to Heather, who is in charge of the charity there at the Avs, and her reply basically shot him down quickly, stating that the equipment team managers told me it was worn, so it was worn, and we're not going to do anything about it. So maybe there's a chance Gordon has some progress with the other people at the Avs, maybe not, but we're hoping. And I would have liked to have seen any resolution to this, whether it involves Milt or not, or involves the Avalanche. And I'm just hoping something can still happen. And I'm done rambling, so Doc, you probably have some things to say.
Oh, you're good. And yeah, it's nice that Nick put a great post in there about him contact the Avs and threw out names and other stuff. And we appreciate when other collectors jump on board to help collectors with anything, because it can sometimes be a group effort, and this has become a big one. So yeah, thank you very much, Nick, for working on that and putting in that effort when others could just read the comments and not try to help out. That is appreciated.
Let me add on to that. Nick was incredible, really wonderful how he helped, but so were a number of other people.
Yes.
The one bright positive thing about this ugly event is that so many people stepped up, tried to help, and we're all positive about it, and try to help find resolutions, help, with the photo matching. Don't hate me for this, Doc, but a lot of experts stepped in and, did a great job, basically proving that it was not worn. And they've tried everything, and they spent a lot of time on it. And it's a lot of really good, experienced people looked into this, and just a lot of good people helped. It's one of the great things about the hobby. It was a nice group effort, and I think that's where I want to close on this Makar thing for this week, that there is some positives out of it, and that's one of them.
And I'll add one other piece to that is anytime you're looking at a jersey, you're thinking about buying, you've bought one and you're trying to photo match, do whatever, you have questions, reach out, because people are going to help you. Yes, you might find some people that don't want to or might be too busy. That happens. But you will find people that will do whatever's in their power to help you with whatever it is, because one, it comes back to the person helping down the road, and two, we all want to grow the hobby and make sure things go well. So we don't want anybody to have issues or have questions. We want people to learn. So don't ever hesitate to reach out. And with that, Logan has learned what we do before the show, because we BS'd and chatted and stuff for almost 45 minutes, and we've rambled on a different stuff here. So we finally get to welcome you and make all the rest of the show about you. So let's start with, for the people out there who don't know who you are, give us a little background.
Sure. All right. My name's Logan Stevens. Thanks for.
Right. Can you try and be a little bit more exciting? I mean,
Yeah, I'll try. My name's Logan Stevens. Thanks, guys, for having me on the podcast. I'm originally from New Hampshire. I've lived in North Carolina now for 3 years, 4 years, 3 years. We'll go with 3. And I grew up a pseudo casual Bruins fan. Being from New England, New England sports, you just kind of, you're a Boston sports fan because you're from the area. And so I'd casually go to Bruins games. And then when I made the move down here with my girlfriend, she's going to veterinarian school. We made the move down to North Carolina, and my 2 college roommates were super into hockey. One of them was a Capitals fan, and the other was a Penguins fan. He actually played, I don't know the different terms, but like prep high school hockey, like boarding school, high school hockey, and could have kind of gone the juniors route, but he ended up going to med school. So he was a diehard Penguins fan. And so they were both super into hockey. And then I, knew I was coming down to Raleigh and started following the Hurricanes and absolutely fell in love with them. So they're my current team now. I still have a soft spot for the Bruins because that's, the team I rooted for many years. But yeah, thanks again for having me on the podcast. My Instagram page is at City of Oaks Hockey with underscores in there. That's where I post my collection. So feel free to follow me and take a look what I've got posted there.
so what actually got you started in collecting?
Yeah. So that funny enough story, that was that same roommate who was the Penguins fan right around I graduated college in 2022. And so my junior and senior years of college were COVID affected. And so that must have been my senior year. Sports events were starting to allow spectators again. And so he got tickets to a Bruins Penguins game at TD Garden. It was either the first or the second game that they allowed fans to go back to. So we had to enter a lottery to get tickets, and we had to sit 3 seats apart from each other and all that. But I remember when I was there, I had a Fanatics, Taylor Hall Fanatics breakaway Bruins jersey. And so I was wearing that. And I remember it was the game where the Bruins were wearing their reverse retro jerseys, the yellow ones that they did, and the Penguins were wearing their white reverse retros. And I remember asking him, I was like, why are the Bruins wearing yellow? Like, what is that? And he was like, oh, that's their reverse retro jersey. I was like, well, what's that? And so that kind of got me into the hockey jersey collecting in general. We had our college apartment had big, tall, lofted ceilings, and so we had just a replica jersey of all 32 teams up on hangers on the big main wall of our apartment. And so that's how I got collecting into just replica hockey jerseys in general. And I was the start of, I feel like, many replica collectors where I wanted to get 32 out of 32 teams, and that was my goal. And since grown way differently in a collecting standpoint of that, and I've kind of shifted more into the game worn side of things. And that kind of one day where he explained to me the whole reverse retro thing and how teams have different jerseys besides just the black and the white home and away and whatnot. So it was kind of born on that specific day. And actually kind of a full circle collector moment for me was I was able to get a Trent Frederick Bruins reverse retro jersey that was worn in that game. And so that was kind of a full circle moment for me as a collector, being able to get something from that game that really kind of, kickstarted everything for me. And that was honestly, that same year was when I got into hockey, more, watching the different games, even games of teams I didn't support just because it was hockey. And so, yeah, it was pretty much that specific game and my college roommate.
How long have you been? So
Oh,
how
so
long
go
have
ahead,
you
Wade.
been, yeah, how long have you been collecting jerseys then? Because I mean, it's kind of a short. You're
Yeah.
pretty deep into it, and it's not like you're a long time.
Yeah. So I right around the 3 years mark, 4 years.
Yeah.
So not super long at all, but
So in 3 years, how much have you How much do you feel like you've learned, or what's changed? Right? I mean, that's got to be an incredible growth process.
oh yeah, absolutely. What I've learned is how much time do you guys have? You know what I mean? It's just the what makes it. I don't even know where to start with that, but I kind of got into my big focus in collecting for whatever reason. I don't know why I like this, but I like obviously besides the Hurricanes game worn jerseys, I like jerseys. I call it, before they were Hurricanes game worn jerseys. So whether that's, the minors teams, the AHL teams, the KHL teams, or even the other NHL teams, I've learned a ton of different stuff about different leagues, different teams, the way that they do things, a ton of different people, what people have in terms of expertise, what people don't have in terms of expertise, in terms of just the regular, guy that wears a DH gate jersey to a game, and just differences of opinions that people have on jerseys and value and the purposes of jerseys. And I truly have learned a ton in just a short time. And I think that's really a testament to the, like you guys were saying, the reach out to anybody with questions to how open this community is, this hobby is, the people are for the most part, and how much there is to learn if you're willing, and how many people there are that are willing to help you learn that and grow yourself as a collector, a hobbyist, or whatever term you want to use.
So did your first jersey come through Migrate then with being Boston?
It did not. So that was actually, that Taylor Hall one was a Fanatics breakaway replica. My first game worn jersey, I think, was Calgary Flames. They had their in-person sale, and then they had an online thing that I saw a random link posted for, where they were selling their game worn jerseys. I think they were all prospects for 75 Canadian. And so being a green collector, I was like, oh my God, $75 for a game worn jerseys, those sell for hundreds. And so I bought a handful of those, and I think those were my first game worn jerseys. But that Frederick one, that reverse retro, was actually a classic auctions win.
Nice.
But yeah.
Now, how long did it take you to realize how big the collecting hobby was?
I mean, at first, I don't even remember how I got into the groups at first. I think I started off in the under 150 replica group, so started off there and was like, holy crap, I think there's, 20,000, 30,000, however many people in that. So that in itself, I was like, holy cow. Like, I had no idea that people collected jerseys, period, besides just, having one that you wear when you go to a game. So, that group was kind of jumping in, dipping my toes in. And then from there, I'd comment on something and somebody would be like, oh, check out this group, check out that group. And, that kind of blossomed out, mushroom clouded out. And I would say it was kind of exponential from there. So at a few months.
Oh wow! I say one, and once you kind of started getting rolling with that, did you initially have a focus, or was it just I want to get a bunch of gamers and see where this goes?
Yeah, so initially it was when I got into the gamers after those Calgary ones, I feel like I was pretty stagnant on there for a little bit. And then, once I did research into those, once I, held the made in Canada jersey next to my Indo replica, and I was like, these aren't even on the same planet. There was a little bit of that, like, these are awesome. I gotta get whatever I can. I picked up two random Iserholm Roosters game worn jerseys just because a guy offered them to me in trade for, two or three replicas I had. And I was like, game worn jersey, oh my God. So I think, initially at first for a small period of time, it was, oh my God, that's so cheap for a game worn. Like that seems like a steal. And so there was that initial, like, spur of the moment, impulsive decision making. But I'd say after that, I kind of, toned it down a little bit, started getting a couple of Bruins jerseys just because they were accessible with my gray. And then after that, kind of started focusing on Hurricanes and Hurricanes jerseys soon after.
Now, with getting the hurricane stuff through the team, did you find with having to go to those equipment sales and stuff, did you find it pretty difficult to be able to pick those up initially?
Initially, I went to, I think it was off of Reddit. I found somebody that was a season ticket holder that was like, hey, I have an extra season ticket holder spot to the yard sale if anybody wants to go. And she was getting there at like 7 a.m., I think, and the doors opened at 8. So not like super early, but in my mind, early, even though that was dead wrong. But at that one initially, I picked up a couple of random jerseys. So that would have been, I'd say, actually, I might have my timeline all screwed up. That might have been before the Calgary jerseys. But again, that was just, I picked up, I looking through the racks and there was a price on a random goalie jersey that I don't even remember the guy's name, but like, was never worn. He came, like, was an invitee to training camp for $75. And again, in my young in terms of, collecting age, that was a cheap jersey. I picked that up and picked up a handful from that sale that I got to, but those were pretty easy. But then I kind of, started realizing that it was kind of more difficult to get the actual roster players from the Hurricanes. They're pretty stringent on how they do those. They, pretty much stick to the game day auctions where they put up a random one or two, and then, every once in a while they'll do the whalers auction or the military auction or one big one like that. But it definitely was realized it was harder to get those roster type players and semi easy to get, team issued prospect camp worn jerseys from the equipment sale. But yeah, I don't know if that answered your question. I don't quite remember what the question was.
No, you're good. Just trying to kind of gauge how you found your focus and kind of what you did. So as you have gone on collecting, you've had the opportunity at least a few times, I think, from the pictures and stuff I've seen of making deals with players. How did that come about?
So that kind of came about with the whole, before they were Hurricanes jerseys. This would have been in 2023 when Brady Shea was still with the Hurricanes. Someone posted his NHL debut game worn jersey with the Rangers. It was only worn for one game. I think he had just finished up NCAA and I think was mainly with the Wolfpack, and so got called up for one random game, and that was that jersey. And so I picked that up and thought it was the coolest thing. You know, I went through and photo matched it to that debut game, and posted it in just a generic Hurricanes memorabilia group, not even the gamer group, but just like, you know, Carolina Hurricanes merchandise and autographs in one of those. And was like, you know, just wanted to share my pickup. And people were like, oh, that's super cool. Like, I'm surprised he doesn't have that as his, you know, because it's his debut jersey. And one guy commented, I wonder if you would reach out to him if he would want it. And I was like, I don't know. I feel like, you know, he would have taken it if he would have wanted it, kind of thing. And, you know, that guy ended up messaging me. He's like, hey, I really think you should try and reach out to see if you want it. And I kind of expressed that, you know, mate, I feel like he would have gotten it if he did. And he brought up the point that, you know, he was called up for a random game and then sent back down. He might have never had the opportunity to, you know, at the end of season clean out or whatever, to get that. And so I reached out to a couple of different people within the Hurricane staff, just being like, you know, hey, my name is Logan Stevens. I'm a big game worn hockey jersey collector. I recently came across this and didn't know if it was something that Brady would want to have for himself or his family, being his debut jersey. Somebody suggested it. Reached out to a couple of different people, and then got directed to a few other people, and finally had a staffer reach back out and be like, hey, so sorry, you know, just getting back to you. I showed this to Brady and he'd love to have it and trade you a Hurricanes jersey of his. And I was like, holy crap, like that's awesome. And it was still during, I want to say it was still during the regular season. So he's like, you know, we won't, actually it was during playoffs. That's what it was. It was during playoffs. So he's like, you know, we can't do it. Obviously can't do it now because, you know, the guys are all focused in on playoffs, but, you know, once the season ends, he'd love to make a trade for you. That's awesome. So the playoffs went on. Was still talking to the guy, and he was like, all right, could you, it was after the end of the season, after the interviews, and he was like, hey, I'll reach back out to Brady and see what's going on. And got a text back that was like, hey, Brady actually just left town. He had to go to, I don't remember what it was, some event, but he left a Hurricanes jersey for you. Would you be able to drop off the Rangers debut jersey for me? I was like, sure. And so I went to the arena, you know, gave him that jersey, and he gave me the Shea jersey, which ended up being Brady Shea's Hurricanes debut jersey, which was like straight from, yeah, so he debuted during COVID for the Hurricanes because he was a trade deadline pickup, and he only wore the red jersey for one game. So he wore the red jersey, and then they did the black alternate jersey for a couple of games, and then finished the season on the road for a big long stretch. So he only wore that for one game, and it came right from his closet. And so it was kind of unique in terms of Hurricanes jerseys, because they sell, I want to say, you know, 95% of what they auction off that doesn't end up at the equipment sale, they sell autographed. And this one, you know, wasn't autographed, didn't have the, you know, COA loosely used for what the Hurricanes give out. You know, it's a piece of paper that says this was autographed by, and then a blank space where they handwrite in the player name. But, you know, it didn't have one of those, didn't have his autograph on it. And so that was kind of cool to me. You know, it wasn't just something that the foundation grabbed from the basement of PNC and gotten that to me. It was something from his collection. And so the Hurricane staffer was like, you know, I'll get this to him when he comes back. And he said something like, hopefully it's while he is still a Hurricane, because that was when he was a free agent, so it wasn't sure where he was going to signing. And then he ended up taking that, you know, monster deal with Nashville and didn't end up coming back. But yeah, so that was the first one of those kind of officially. But actually circling back to the Calgary jerseys I mentioned before, once I kind of got over the awe of, you know, oh my God, I own a game worn jersey, I posted them for sale or for trade. And somebody reached out. It's a well-known collector. I can't think of his name right now, but was like, hey, the guy's name was Smith, the player jersey, and it was a practice jersey. It was a Reebok practice training camp jersey. He was like, hey, Smith wants his jersey. Like he doesn't have anything of his from the Flames. Like, would you sell it to him? I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't, you know, I paid, I think those practice jerseys were like 25 Canadian. And so I was like, you know, I paid that, you know, pay shipping, and I'll happily send it to him. He was in overseas somewhere. And so that was actually the first one that I did without even really thinking of it. It was just kind of like, oh, cool. You know, maybe it's his. I didn't really know at that point because, again, I was still fresh, but that was actually the first one. And then the Shea one was the first, like, you know, official, actual deal with a player kind of thing. And that kind of, really got me thinking that a lot of these guys that aren't, career NHL players, whether they started in the minors or were, kind of journeymen where they bounced around, didn't necessarily have the opportunity to get those jerseys that they may want, or, now that they have kids, a wife or whatnot, that they might want for their, to pass down to their kids someday. And so that was kind of super cool for me as a collector, because as cool as that having his debut jersey was, I know how much more it means to him, and the fact that he wanted it. And the Hurricane staffer was like, Brady's super excited about this. He had no idea it existed. He's absolutely thrilled to get it. It was kind of a, gave you a warm, fuzzy feeling kind of thing. And so that's how that whole thing started. And yeah, that's kind of how it it all got started. Kind of a long-winded roundabout answer, but
How many total players have you traded with now?
So I've done
Or
a combination,
or at least exchanged jerseys with.
yeah. So I've done a combination of that, or they bought it from me, and so I did, not including that Flames one. I guess you can. I think it's up to 8. So after the Brady Shea one, I was, I talked with the Hurricane staffer for 10-15 minutes at the arena, just about, because a lot of these guys that work for the team, whether it's equipment or staffers or whatnot, don't understand the appeal, not necessarily the appeal, but just don't understand the collecting world in general. And so him and I were talking about that for a while. He was saying how they'll save milestone pucks and give those to players in the nice little plaques that they do. But he was like, I never really thought about jerseys having sentimental value. He's like, they get to keep 1 or 2 at the end of the season, but he was like, I figured they just kept them as something to wear. He's like, I didn't realize they could have that value to them. Let me know if you have anything else that comes up that you think players might want, and I can show it to them. And at that point, I had also gotten Jesper Fast's NHL debut jersey, coincidentally also a Rangers jersey. As a Hurricanes fan, it was kind of weird how many Rangers game worn jerseys I had there for a bit. And then I also had Jordan Martinook's jersey that he scored his first NHL point in. It was an assist. And so I was like, actually, I have these, like, here, here's some pictures, like maybe they'd want those. I don't really know, but now that I'm thinking about it, like maybe. And so he was like, all right, I'll show them to him. And he was like, yeah, Martinook wants that jersey. He's like, Fost was kind of like, oh, that's cool, and didn't really have much more than that. He's like, but he said he'd think about it. He's like, they both went home though, so we'll do it come training camp in the fall. And I was like, all right, that's cool. Well, actually, then he was like, oh, like he's like, could I give you like a signed replica from the team store instead for it? And I was like, I don't know about
Immediately,
that.
at least a little bit more equal.
Yeah.
Here.
I said it more nicely, I was like, oh, I already have a handful of autographed jerseys, and it has some, I don't know, I phrased it nicely, but basically saying, no, I don't want to trade it for a signed replica, but I still want to get it to them. And so that was that. And throughout the summer, I had gotten like 1 or 2 other things that I was like, hey, maybe they'd want this. And then come training camp, I hadn't heard from the Kane staffer. He took a new position, and so I was like, all right, maybe he's busy with that. And then they do like a season ticket member autograph event where you can go like meet the players, get autographs. And I had a different gamer of Martinook's to get signed. It was a Vancouver Giants jersey his that I had him sign the fight strap. He's like, oh, I haven't seen one of these in ages. I was like, yeah. I was like, actually, I don't know if you remember when the Hurricane staffer talked to you. I'm actually the guy that has your Coyotes jersey. He was like, oh, and just lit up. He was like, oh, that's you? He's like, yeah, I definitely still want that. He's like, I've got to wait to get a jersey. He's like, I don't really have one now that I could give you, but I'll wait. And once we swap out the new sets, he's like, I can give you one of those. So wow, yeah, okay, that works. So that went on. And throughout the year, still didn't hear back from the Hurricane staffer. Reached out to a couple different people, being like, "Hey, I know this guy has a different job. Like, is there? I know Martinook wants it to happen. He expressed that and said he was waiting for the new set. Is there? Should I try somebody else now that the first guy has a different role?" They're like, no, it's probably still the first guy. And again, time went on, nothing else happened. And I talked with a couple other people in the Hurricanes organization, they're like, yeah, definitely. I had spoken again. There was another event where I talked to Martin Hook, and he was like, "Oh, you're the guy with the jersey. I still got to get that. I still really want the Coyotes jersey." I was like, "Oh yeah, just tell the Hurricane staff to reach out. We can get things moving, yada yada." And then come the end of the season, after playoffs had happened, then they lost in the Eastern Conference Finals, a couple months ago. They do the player interviews, and I saw a couple people talking in one of the just Hurricanes fan group pages about how players will, like, after their exit interviews, they'll come out and there'll be a small group of people, like fans waiting there, and the players will, like, take photos, sign autographs, just chat. And I was like, I still haven't heard from the Hurricane staffer. I was like, I might as well go and give it to him then. And so sure enough, I went, I'd gotten out of work early that day, went to the exit interviews, was standing just chatting with fans. And he pulls up and is talking with people, taking pictures, and I kind of stood back, let people take their pictures, and brought the jersey, pretty much just thinking, I want to get this into his hands before he goes back home to Canada for the summer, just to get it to him. Whatever happens at this point. I just want to get the jersey to where it needs to go. And so after everybody had walked away, I walked up to him holding it, and again, eyes just lit up. He's like, "Oh." I was like, "Hey, I just wanted to get this from you. I never heard back from the Kane staffer, but I know that you want it. I just want to get it into your hands. Whatever happened. It's not that deep." He was like, "Actually, I've got a jersey in the back I can give you." He's like, "You want white or black?" And so in the moment, I was like, kind of a split second decision. He wears the A on the road, and I didn't have a white gamer yet, so I was like, white. He's like, "All right." So went around, opened up the back of his Bronco that he drove, and he's got his duffel bags and his sticks and two jerseys crumpled up into a ball, and he pulls out the white one, shakes it off, and hands it to me. I was like, "Can we grab a picture?" And we did like like the NBA does, where each guy's holding their jersey. And so I've got the Hurricanes jersey, he's got the Coyotes jersey, and I actually forgotten I talked to him about how, because it was originally listed as part of a group, that Martinook one was listed as part of a group of just training camp jerseys. And so I bought it knowing, thinking it was just a training camp jersey. And that's what the LOA said was, this training camp jersey was worn by Jordan Martinook, blah, blah, blah. And through photo matching is how I found out that it was worn in the regular season, including his first point. So I kind of explained, I didn't go too deep into it because I knew he wasn't, like the photo matching nerds and degenerates that we all are with that kind of stuff. So we wouldn't care too much, but just kind of gave him the rundown. I was like, "Oh, there's a hole here, and I found a picture, you can see the hole there." He's like, "Oh, that's super cool." And, I gave that to him. We took the picture, and I was like, "Oh, actually, I forgot the COA in my car." I went and grabbed it and gave it to him. I was like, "Actually, it's like, this probably doesn't mean much to you being the guy that wore it, but here's the laminated piece of paper from the Coyotes." And so that was a super cool one again. And then I knew, so that was the next one. And then after that was the other jersey that I'd mentioned to that Hurricane staffer, was the Jesper Fast one. And he had been injured the previous season, and so was on injured reserve list that whole season. He didn't play a game. He sounded the siren once during playoffs, but besides that, I brought his jersey to the exit interviews thinking maybe he does one. He didn't, whatever. And so I knew there were kind of rumors going around that he might retire, B, he might sign with an overseas league. And I knew that his wife was super involved in some of the Hurricanes groups. She every once in a while would post in the fan groups and just super active on social media. And I was like, if he wants it. And I reached out to her. I was like, "Hey, I feel kind of weird doing this, but I know it was something he expressed interest in. Is this something that he'd like to have?" I was like, again, no worries. If not, no big deal at all. Sorry to intrude. Like I said, I feel kind of weird, but again, if it's something he wants, I'd love to get it to him. And she responded super quick. Like, "Yeah, I just talked with Jesper. He says he remembers talking about this with the Hurricane staffer, but the Hurricane staffer never followed up. And he thought, you had cold feet or something, but he'd love to have it." She was like, "We leave for Sweden tomorrow. Like, could you meet today to do this?" And I think at that point because this was actually, this one might've been the next day, but I was at work when she responded within, a couple minutes of me reaching out. And so I was like, "Oh crap." I told my boss, I was like, "Hey, I gotta go. Because she was like, can you
Something more
meet him?
important's come up.
Yeah. She was like, can you meet him at the arena in like 20 minutes? He has to run an errand. She's like, otherwise we're leaving early in the morning for Sweden. I was like, yeah. And she oh, what was it? She was like, oh, she was like, I don't, he said he'd love to give you a Hurricanes jersey for it, but we shipped them all back to Sweden this December with like send him back home with family. So he doesn't have any of his jerseys here. Like we can send you one once we get back to Sweden. I was like, yeah, that works great. I was like, I wonder if the foundation has any, lying around in their massive stockpile that they don't share the details of, or the equipment managers. She was like, oh, that's a good idea. Let's, I'll have Jesper reach out. And she responded again, like 5 minutes later, like, oh, he got one from the equipment team or the equipment staff. Like, we'll meet up in 20 minutes. And that actually kind of turned into a funny story. And, I show up at the arena at that time. She's like, meet at the back, kind of by the loading dock, like where the players go in. It's like, all right. And I start driving towards the arena and, turn to the parking lot, and it's full of cars. And I had no idea of anything going on that day. I'm like, is there a concert? Is there something going on? And so I get to the back by the loading dock, and there's a line of people like wrapping partly around the arena waiting to go in the loading dock. I'm like, shit. I'm like, I'm gonna get out of my car holding a Rangers jersey, get booed. I was like, I don't know what's going on. And so I reached back out to the wife. She was like, let me know if you have any issues. And I was like, hey, like I don't know what's going on with at the arena. I don't know if he wants to meet inside so like he doesn't get mobbed by fans. Like, I'm not quite sure what's going on. I didn't hear a response. And so I went to the line. I saw somebody I knew, and I was like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, oh, it's the Paint the Ice event. I was like, oh, I got an email about that. I forgot about that. But that's what's going on. And so I went to the little guard shack. I was like, hey, this is going to sound fake. And I know that, but I promise it's not. And I know that makes it sound more fake. But I was like, I'm here to trade jerseys with Jesper Fast. Like, is he here? And the guy kind of looked at me. He's like, you're here to trade jerseys with Jesper Fast. I was like, again, I know, but yes. I was like, I can show you the messages with his wife. I was like, that makes it look even worse. Like, I know it's actually his wife and not just somebody saying that. He was like, I'll go talk to my boss. So he left. He came back. He's like, no, Jesper Fast is not here. No one's heard of him coming. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I was like, okay. I was like, thanks for your help. And go and stood back by the car, just like looking at my phone. And out of the corner of my eye, way across the parking lot, I see somebody going like this. And I was like, oh, it's him. And so I walked all the way to the other side of the parking lot. He was like, hey, I don't know what's going on. He's like, I just want to get close to all the people. I was hoping you saw me back over here. So we did the swap there. I took a picture with him, chatted with him a little bit. And I kind of asked him I was like, so I've heard, do you know what, or he wasn't in a neck brace and he was walking around. So I was like, it's great to see you, not in your neck brace. I, hope everything's better. He was like, yeah, it was really, really tough on my family and I, but, doing better now, no pain. And I was like, do you have any idea what you're going to do? Like, have you made that decision yet? And he was like, well, we're leaving to go back to Sweden tomorrow. And I was like, all right. He was like, yeah, so yeah. And then sure enough, the next day he, announced his retirement and whatnot. But I was like, that's pretty cool. But then, those are kind of the big three, the two in person that I've done and the other Hurricanes one. And then the other ones I've done were smaller ones. I got John Matsumoto, who played a handful of games. I want to say definitely under 100. I'd gotten his jersey that he scored his first and second NHL goals in, which ended up being his only NHL goals. And I posted that on my Instagram. Again, reached out because I was like, man, apparently players, want these things. And a lot of them, especially Hurricanes wise, don't get them. And so I reached out to him. I was like, hey, would you want this? He was like, oh my God, yes. Could I trade you my Rod Brindamore retirement night issued jersey because he was in Charlotte at the time. He's like, I don't know. He's like, I never wore it because I was with Charlotte, but Rod signed it to me, and he's like, would that be something that would interest you? I was like, yeah. Or at first he was like, what do you want for it? I was like, I'd gotten that one in a deal off of Facebook Marketplace. I was like, to be honest, I paid $100 for it. It wasn't, I didn't pay a lot for it. I was like, it's yours for that if you want it. Then that's when he brought up the Brindamore jersey. And I was like, yeah, like that would be awesome. It's a super unique piece. And so he was in Germany. I think he was in Germany. He was like, but my family comes back to Massachusetts for a couple months in the summer. He's like, that's where my jerseys are too. Like, once I'm there, could you ship it to my house and I'll ship you the Brindamore one? I was like, yeah, absolutely. And so that was that. And then the other ones I've done where I got Stefan Nason his only game worn jersey with the Maple Leafs because he was kind of a career journeyman. I think he played, somebody posted a statistic. It's like there's 4 seasons where he played one NHL game because he was mainly an AHL guy and then got called up for the last game like some teams do. And so his one and only game worn Maple Leafs jersey I had picked up off of for one of those super cheap sales on Facebook in one of the groups of all the Leafs jerseys. And so I picked that one up for super cheap and had commented on one of his Instagram posts like, hey, I have your one and only game worn Leafs jersey. I know that some players like a jersey from every team. Let me know if it's something you'd be interested in. And so I got that one to him. That one I just ended up, because coordination on that one was weird because he didn't have any jerseys. And again, he was like, I want to give you something for it, but he didn't have any. And he was like, can you reach out to the Hurricanes? And the Hurricanes were weird about it. They're like, we can't deal with you. We have to deal directly with the player. And so that one I just ended up, he was doing an autograph signing up in New Jersey after he had signed there. And I reached out to the company. I was like, hey, could I send this to you? Because I know he wants it. Could I just mail this to the sports store for the signing and you could give it to him? And so that's how that one went. And then recently I found a random, every once in a while I'll search for random Give Smart auctions or random Give Butter auctions and just see what pops up. Every once in a while you'll get a random charity that occasionally has stuff. And there was a bunch of stuff. One of which was the Cleveland Monsters had a jersey. I think it just said jersey and just showed a picture of the front, but I could tell that it was a player and it was at least team issued and 4 tickets to any Monsters game. And I got it for $75. And I was like, a gamer and 4 tickets for $75, or even if it was a team issued, I was like, who cares? It was a super cool jersey. And it ended up being Brendan Harris, who's career ECHL guy. He just signed with the Nottingham Panthers. And so was his only AHL jersey. And so, technically his only pro jersey, depending on how you look at it. And so again, I reached out to him and was like, hey, I have your only pro jersey. Is that something you'd want? And he was like, oh my God, I never knew that. I figured it got thrown away. I said, yeah, man, happy to send it to you. He's like, what'd you pay for it? I was like, $75. He's like, oh, dude, here instantly. He's like, what's your Venmo? And he sent me money for it. I shipped it off to him. And then he left to go to the Panthers, the Nottingham Panthers. But yeah, it's just been super cool, learning players' stories with these jerseys and hearing. Oh, and then the other one I did recently was Matt, Current. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his last name. But I picked up a Hurricanes jersey of his that was worn in the preseason in 2 fights, one of which was a huge preseason tilt, and it had a 1-foot-long repair down the chest from where the other guy was yanking on the jersey. It was just a cool jersey I picked up, but it would have been his only Hurricanes jersey, and I posted it on my Instagram, and I usually tag the players, and he had liked it and commented something on it. I don't remember. He was like, "That's awesome." He was like, "That's my only Canes jersey." So again, I was like, do you want it? And he was like, oh my God, dude, yeah. And so in doing research for that, when I was doing research for that jersey, trying to photo match it, video match it, I found that Migray had his NHL debut jersey. And with how excited he was for that, I was like, he was in Canada, and I was like, I sent him the link. I was like, hey, these guys have your debut jersey if that's something that you'd be interested. And he was like, oh my God, yeah. He's like, I'd love to. He's like, how did they even have it? He's like, they had it for sale, and just no concept of Migrate having all the jerseys. He's like, what do you mean they have it for sale? And I was like, they've got it on their website. And he's like, yeah, if you could get that for me and ship it with the Hurricanes one to me, that'd be great. He's like, I'll pay you for that. Pay you for that, pay you for the delivery. And so I shipped those up to him, and those actually just got to him beginning of this week. And so he just texted me today. I didn't open the box for a couple of days. He's like, I just opened it tonight. He's like, these things are so cool. Thanks again so much. He's like, let me know if you ever need anything. And in my head, I'm like, what could I ever need? I was like, thanks, that's awesome. Ex-NHL player told me to let him know if I ever need a favor. That's kind of cool. But yeah, so that's the story with that. Like I said, it's cool to me. It's cool to be able to get players these things that they didn't perchance have the chance to get for them. As cool as it is to me as a collector, that's what I always say. As cool as a jersey is to me, I don't have that much of an emotional connection to it where I don't mind getting it back to the player. But yeah, that's my story in terms of those. And actually, if you see the sticks behind me, and then on the other side of my room here is I carry my laptop. I've got the 4 of the trade jerseys I did hanging on.
Very nice.
Just hanging on an upside down hanger. But that's the Shea one, the Martin, the Fost, and then the Brindamore. I don't know how well you guys can see
those
that
look
with my
great.
screen.
They look
Yeah,
good.
and then
Good
this
autograph
one
too.
Yeah, so this one wasn't. It was signed by Brindamore, and it says to Matts, all the best in your career. And Brindamore signed it, and then he signed it for me before he sent it. And he was like, I know. He's like, I know Rod gifted me this jersey. He's like, but I feel like he would understand me giving it to you in terms, to get my first point jersey. And that was kind of cool to me. I was like, wow. I was like, he got it as a gift from Rod Brindamore and then gave it to me. I was like, what a crazy turn of events that is. He was like, he's like, I know it'll be in a good home. So yeah, that's
And it
that's
and
the
it
story of
helps
those.
too that in the last, what's it been, Wade, 4 years, the CBA's had the jersey where the players get the 2.
Mm-hmm. And
That's
that must have been the Martinook ones that he had leaving at the end of season interviews. He had 2 jerseys in the back of his car, and those were the 2.
I wanted to ask about the Martinook then, since
Mhm.
we all 3 of us were thinking, yeah, those must be the CBA jerseys. So, because with 2, how was it? How's the wear on that one? Was it multiple games?
Yeah.
Was it 1 game? We're always curious what the players get out of the CBA.
Because every team's different on what they do.
Yes, and this is the first news we have on the Hurricanes.
Yeah. So it is his playoff game worn jersey from this past season. Was
Nice.
worn, matched it to all the playoff games, including the historic Eastern Conference Finals win that we hadn't had in forever. But yeah, it's got decent wear to it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, but it's the Fanatics one, which is now a 1-year style of the diagonal canes away because they went to that.
That's not so beautiful.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say it. Yeah.
I can't go a show without mentioning it. So.
Again, I love that collegiate Stormy logo by itself. It's a cool logo by itself, but does it belong on a jersey that is worn the most out of all of the jerseys? Absolutely not. I'm trying to find. I've got. They did a specialty jersey with it on it.
So as you're looking for that, you've had a lot of really positive experiences with former players and getting jerseys back. And we know that's not always the case. We've heard some nightmare stories with some players, and stuff, and some players like not understanding at all what these jerseys are worth, even if they have multi-million-dollar contracts.
Yeah. You
don't have to go into any names. Do you have any other interactions which were not so positive?
No, so far I've had, I knock on the table in front of me. I've had all great interactions so far. The players have basically said like either what do you want for it? I'll give you anything, or what'd you pay for it, or can I trade you this? Like that kind of thing. They've all been great about it. And no matter, I'm always like, I paid this, I don't want to make money off of them. I just feel dirty in that sense trying to do that, but I'll give it to them for what I paid for. in terms of the Mason one, I didn't get anything back, but that was a jersey I paid $100 for. So in the grand scheme of things, that one, water under the bridge. He signed a couple of things at the autograph signing that I sent in and sent them back. But yeah,
That's
no,
great.
I've had all great experiences.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Jumping back into the abomination that is the Canes away, they did this vintage like warm up. Well, not warm up because they couldn't wear the warm ups, but specialty jersey with with the Stormy on it, and yeah, it was cool. It's the big C logo. It's all like cream. It's got like the off white Hurricanes logo, and I think it looks great on that. A novelty vintage jersey they called it. I think that logo looks great on that.
Could
I
pass as a
can't say the
Cornell
same. I can't say the same about the current jersey that logo's on, but yeah. So to my understanding, with going back to this one, because in that, the other players that left in that interview, Spencer Martin was one of the players that stopped, and I had him sign a puck that I happen to have. And he was talking to somebody else because that was after the Martinook thing. Because I stayed around talking because when that happened, everybody had gotten their photos taken and the autographs, and then see me getting a jersey, so they all kind of swarmed back over and like, what? How'd you get a jersey from him?
Is he just handing them out?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I told him that whole story. And so somebody mentioned when Spencer Martin came out, he only played, I don't even know, it wasn't too many games for the Hurricanes. He was kind of we had him for 2 years, but last year he only played a couple of games. He was kind of when Freddie Anderson had his annual Freddie Anderson injury, got called up. And so somebody asked, they were like, "Oh, like, did you get any of your jerseys?" And he said something along the lines of, "They only let me get one." And so I kind of was interested in that, because maybe he only played a certain number of games, if maybe there's a stipulation in that for that. But he's like, "Yeah, they only took one." I was kind of mad. I was like, "Oh." But
that is a little bit odd, and at least what I've read in the CBA, it just says 2 will be provided, but
right.
maybe it's some weird thing if they're call ups, that doesn't fully apply to them.
Mm-hmm. And I do know that the Hurricanes are good.
Games participated in and things like that, I'm sure, do probably play a part in how they determine what they're going to get.
Yeah, Mark Spencer played a full 9 games last year for the Hurricanes.
Yeah.
And then 30 something for the Wolves.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm surprised, being there for 9 games that he played and more on the bench. I'm shocked he only got 1 jersey because
and they are good about with the Whalers jerseys that they do. They'll always, if you have one of the game worn Whalers ones, any of you guys or anybody watching, it'll say, at least for the newer ones, besides the first year, it'll say, Hartford Whalers throwback night or Whalers jersey night set 2 or second set or first set. And so with those Whalers sweaters, they always do, at least according to, I had talked with the equipment manager a couple of times on Facebook, and he was like, they wear warm-ups in first period and then second period and third period. So there's 2 jerseys, players keep one, foundation gets the other. But I don't know, because he wouldn't have even dressed for that game, but I'm sure they had one made up for him. So I don't know if maybe he got that and then the Hurricane, who knows?
That would meet the CBA.
Exactly, yeah. But who knows? Maybe it's something with that. Maybe he got his issued Whalers one, but I don't know.
So since we're speculating the Martinook is from the CBA, is there a set tag on it?
Yeah, it's just the normal
Cool.
Hurricane set tag. It just says official Carolina Hurricanes Stanley Cup playoff. Their typical. I don't know how well the camera's going to focus on that.
Oh, no, that looks good.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just their normal set tag.
That's wonderful. I didn't know if they would set tag the ones to the players because it may not matter to them at all.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know how, because like the Fost one obviously wasn't one of the CBA ones, because that was one they pulled out of their closet, and that's tagged exactly the same way. But so the Hurricanes, at least, I don't think do have them wear a jersey for 1 game or 1 period, and then that's their jersey. Let us sell the rest of them, kind of thing. But
it's very cool.
Do you guys know like what other teams do in terms of the CBA? Do we have any info on what other teams do?
We knew the Red Wings gave set 2 to the players this year. And the Red Wings
Okay.
only wear 2 sets. And,
Gotcha.
for reasons that we all know, they don't have a playoff set. So it's
Yep.
uh,
So the Blues have the last couple years seemingly went into a third set like the last week of the season, which then becomes the playoff set for the first round at least.
Okay.
And the players typically get those. Those are the ones
Interesting.
we don't see. I've heard of a couple other teams in conversations with people where they say they actually make just like they make one game sets for the home and away, and then the players just take those.
Yeah.
I forgot what team that was. Doc, do you remember who we talked to about that? That said that was what they did.
I have to go back and look. Wait, I don't actually remember.
I'd heard that somewhere that there was a team that did that. I mean, so I think it just probably depends on the equipment manager and the team, and
Yeah.
and then I guess if the players make a request for something different, then they can get that.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
depends on. Like I know for this past season with the Blues, like I know when they do like a specialty jersey or like the Winter Classic jersey, they get one of those plus their 2 regular ones. Like they didn't count that one
Yeah.
as one of their jerseys, but I've heard of other teams that did count that as the player's jersey.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Hurricanes didn't, as far as I know, because the Whalers set, and then a couple years ago when they had, obviously the home away alternate, and then the Whalers, and then the reverse retro twos, and then the Stadium series. I know for sure that they got a set of the Stadium and a set of the Whalers, because one of the Whalers, we still haven't seen the white Adidas Whalers be auctioned yet. The foundation's been kind of dicey about where they are. But we know that there's 2 sets of them because the one gamer that turned up at the yard sale, the one gamer that turned up at the yard sale of the White Whalers was Michael Bunting, and it said that same, second set or whatever. And I asked the equipment managers, yeah, there were 2, one went to the players, one went to the foundation, and they still haven't, they've been sitting on them and nobody really knows, and they're weird about sharing. So, but anyways, and then, so I know for sure they got a Stadium Series set, a White Whalers set, and then one of the big Hurricanes collectors reached out about the reverse retro 2 game worn jerseys, because we've only seen either 1 or 2. I think they were both goalies, but we've only seen 1 or 2 of those auctioned off. And he asked about them. He's like, hey, are you guys planning on doing an auction? And the foundation said most of the players kept those. So I don't know if that was one of the 2, because they didn't do the split set like they do for the Whalers. But they definitely got at least 2 from the Whalers and the Stadium Series. And then from the sounds, everybody kept, well, at least as far as they've revealed, because they're weird about disclosing their inventory of stuff. But yeah, so that season they got at least 2 specialty ones. But yeah, it'd be interesting to know, the inside scoop of how more teams handle that, and what teams, or even what players care, because I'm sure there's players that couldn't care less about the jerseys. You know what I mean? To them, it's just another shirt, another jersey. It doesn't really matter to them too much. Versus you have the guys that get excited about it and have, like I saw a Russian interview with Andrei Spechnikov that somebody on Twitter had translated. And he was showing the reporter his closet, and it was just packed full of jerseys, and he was showing them off and getting all excited with them. So there's guys like that, but there's been 1 or 2 other guys that I reached out to. I was like, hey, like, would you be interested in this jersey? And they were like, no, thanks though. I couldn't care less about it. So I wonder if that boils down to it, because again, with the Spencer Martin thing, he only got 1 and was kind of peeved about it, but versus other guys might only get 1 that played the full season and couldn't care less that they didn't get their 2 that they were promised.
There's probably even guys that don't even take them when they're offered them to them. They're probably
yeah.
Pretty wild. But I mean, everybody's got a different philosophy.
Yeah.
So you collect one of the more difficult teams in the NHL.
Yes.
Well, without a doubt. It's not like you can go to MyGray and get current inventory.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the Bruins Pro Shop or the Sharks where you can find stuff fairly easily. You have an equipment sale, but like you said, you don't get too many of the real gamers in there.
Mm-hmm.
So is that a good thing or a bad thing? And by that, I mean, do you enjoy the challenge? Does that add something to the hobby for you? Or is it just like, this is frustrating? And when you do get a success, it's like you highly celebrate. So, I mean, because you know how it is to get other jerseys. And I think the
Yeah,
Canes are one of the toughest jerseys to find,
yeah,
period, in
yeah.
the NHL. Yeah.
Because like I mentioned earlier, they do, every night of the game they have their game day auction, which they usually will do one jersey of a current player, and then if it's a player returning, like this year when Teuvo Teravainen came back with the Blackhawks, they auctioned a regular roster player, like Jarvis away 2022. I'm making that up. Don't don't quote me on that. But that, and then a Teuvo Teravainen game worn jersey because it was his return, and so it's kind of up in the air. You never know what's coming out. You can ask the foundation, but they will not tell you. And then occasionally at the yard sale, you'll have actual gamers pop up of actual roster players randomly, but for the most part, it's prospect jerseys, issued jerseys, and the like.
So,
But
so
yeah,
when you say like the game day, is that an in-house thing or is it like a Give Smart or like?
Give Smart, yeah, it's
Okay.
a Give Smart. Through the foundation, they have their table set up, with the jersey on display, and it's usually a gamer, one or two, usually only one of a current roster guy, and then if it's a fan favorite coming back, they might throw one of his in.
Where would the price point fall on those? Like on one of those?
If it's a lot, and those auctions in general just go for a ton of money. I remember a couple years ago there was an Aho Stadium Series replica that was signed, that I don't know if somebody had a few too many Storm Brew beers at the game and thought it was his gamer, but it went for $2,700 for a signed made in Indonesia jersey. Um,
Like on
but
an average gamer, like what would you
over
say?
1,000
A
easily.
thousand? Yeah, okay. All
Wow.
right.
Yeah, yeah. No
And
matter who, a Jalen Chatfield set two playoffs jersey over $1,200 probably for Chatfield easily. So that part's frustrating. It's frustrating in that sense that stuff doesn't come up often, and because of the limited scope that it comes out, I think that feeds into the exuberant prices for stuff. It doesn't come out often, and when somebody, the I don't want to say the casual fan, but casual in the sense of doesn't have a closet full of sweaty polyester, but they see a game worn jersey of a player they like, and panic buy it, and the price just skyrockets. And so they'll usually have the game worn jersey. They'll have what they call like the player package, which is like an autographed hat, an autographed koozie, an autographed puck, like random knickknacks, and then a team signed random item, like a team signed popcorn Zamboni or a team signed Hurricanes lawn gnome. And even that stuff, the players package, which is three, pro shop items signed by random players, that is easily over $500 a night.
Really?
So that's the frustrating part of it is, if you're hoping for something specific, I had somebody when they traded for Stankoven reach out and say, hey, how do the Hurricanes do their jerseys? Like, I'd love to get a Stankoven one. Like, when any idea when they'll sell it? And I was like, I wish I could say yes, but no, you just have to wait for one to pop up, and because they pop up so infrequently, when somebody sees a player they like, it'll go high. I will say they were better this past season. They had two, maybe it was just one, but they had one auction of, they called it Jersey Mayhem because it was in May. It was like 100 jerseys from random, like there was an Eric Stahl game worn Reebok jersey. It was mostly guys that had left. So Stefan Mason, Jack Drury, Marty Natchez, Teuvo Teravainen, like guys that left in the past season. But like there were Reebok jerseys in there. Like stuff just comes out of the woodworks.
Sounds like the Blues, Wade.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
those all were over 1,000?
Those ones definitely went less in that big Jersey Mayhem auction that they did. Those definitely went less. Some of those went for $400, but I think that was just because of volume. You know what I mean? The the fan that just wants a jersey to have a jersey isn't gonna, put all their dollars and all their eggs in one basket for the one that's being offered the one night they're at a game. But
How
those went cheaper, and that was the first time. Well, not the first time, but one of the few times they've done a big random auction like that.
And there is remote bidding on that, right? You don't have to be
Yes,
at the
yep, on
arena.
all the gives merch. Yep.
Okay, just one. Yeah, I knew it used to be that way. I wasn't sure if it still was. Thank you.
I mean, every team has its share of, like, I call them, like, your diehard collector jersey.
Mhm.
Do you think you have a pretty, like, I mean, is it a big community of jersey collectors, or do you find that because of the way they do it, there's fan collectors, or is there I mean, is there a big community of exclusively, Canes collector, like a community?
I wouldn't say there's a huge one. There's one. Can we mention names on this? I don't know
You,
how.
you can mention Bobby.
Yeah, yeah. So Bobby Eagle is the
Yeah.
Carolina Hurricanes collector, and there's a couple other smaller collectors that have jerseys like that. And in doing what I'm doing, I've kind of, a couple of them have come out of the woodworks, and I've met a few of them at yard sales. But I wouldn't say there's a huge kind of set community like that. It really is a lot of just, I don't want to say generic fans,
Oh yeah,
but
I mean we see that. I mean we see it in St. Louis. I mean, like when the
mhm,
team's playing well, or when something's fresh,
absolutely.
the prices change. Whenever it gets a little stagnant or slower, and we're not,
Hmm.
those years are missing the playoffs or just not as good, then the prices kind of fall back to a more normal number. I mean,
Yeah.
like I understand that the days of the $400 and $500 auction numbers on for us are pretty much gone.
Yeah.
There used to be a period of time, and Doc will tell you, where you could get your star players were $1,000 or $1,500, and that's
Yeah.
just not. Doc, you agree that those days are gone, right?
Oh yeah, and unless the Blues were to get back to a Stanley Cup team again, you'll see all that stuff shoot up. But
Yeah,
everything, as I've charted it out, everything kind of just settles in the middle, and
Hmm.
you can pick up some lower end guys for $300.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just hard now again. Whereas when we were really on that run, even your fourth line call up guys were 500 or 600. So
Yeah.
I just
That's
didn't know
kind
how
of the
big.
state it is now.
Yeah, like you know, you always wonder how that looks.
Yeah.
And plus you guys have the checkers right there too. So
Yeah, yeah. And I
I
do know back when the Hurricanes weren't, when they were in their dark years, bottom of the league, not doing great. I know that jerseys went for super cheap just in talking to guys like Bobby or a couple of
yeah,
the semi-casual kind of diehard collectors that have come out of the woodwork in doing the posting that I've been doing. They got jerseys for
nothing.
$75 at the yard sale of like actual lineup guys. But now that the Canes are doing well, minimum at the yard sale they do is a $350 price tag for an issued prospect jersey that never saw the ice. So it's definitely with the success of the team that the market's kind of up there. And or even at the yard sales, like the majority of the people in the line are people that that are getting there early to line up, are people that I've never seen before.
And
Or
they're there
maybe it's
for
a,
jerseys, or they're there for other things.
I think just stuff in general, merchandise, because they have, the pro shop does their like 50% off section, and there's sticks. So I think they're just there for merchandise in general, and pick up jerseys, and it's like, I'll see a guy there that I sold an Aho signed replica jersey for, it, like fourth in line, never touched a game worn jersey in his life. And he's like, I want to get a game worn Whalers jersey. And I'm like, all right, bud.
Fuck yeah.
Cool. But then he just he gets whatever he sees, and it goes into the depths of the closet just to pop up on Facebook Marketplace 5 years later for $100. I do see that a lot with a lot of the older Reebok stuff. Is people will it'll pop up on Facebook Marketplace as like the one I can think of that comes to mind. I found a Facebook Marketplace ad for Nathan Gerby hockey jersey, and clicked on the image. As soon as I clicked on it, you could just see that it was a gamer. You could see the wear. You could see the double reinforced fight strap. And I messaged the woman. I was like, "Hey, I'll take this. Where can I meet you?" And she was like, "Oh, I live off blah blah blah." She's like, "Sorry about the marks on it." She's like, "I must have it's I've had it for years. It must have gotten whatever." She's like, "Sorry for the holes and the pulls on it." And so stuff turns up like that from the dark years, that people don't know what they have. But even now, a lot of the people that get stuff in the game day auctions, like I posted a couple of um team I'm still dicey on the team issued versus game issued, but team issued blank jerseys that I had customized of minor league guys. Like one of them was a Jalen Chatfield Spitfires jersey that I had customized from a blank. I had posted those for sale, and I had a guy reach out and traded me Hurricanes game worn jerseys from guys that were no longer on the team. And I was like, you want to trade this one for one? He's like, yeah. He was like, I just want somebody who's currently on the team. He's like, the guy who the gamer wasn't on the team anymore. Chatfield was still on the team. And so he wanted to do that trade. I was like, all right, that's awesome. Sure. I was like, you're good with this? He was like, yeah, absolutely. He's like, I love Chatfield. I love the style of that jersey. I'd happily give you this game worn jersey. And so I feel like with a lot of people, it's just that they want something to wear to the game with the player's name on it, especially those, third or fourth line or you bottom pair guys that you can't easily get a jersey from the pro shop with their name on it. So when a jersey pops up at one of the auctions that has their name on it, the people that want it and have the means to do it will go for it and spend a ton of money on it. But yeah, to answer Paul's original question, it is kind of adds to the fun of it. When you get a good find like that, Nathan Gerby jersey I got off a marketplace, it kind of adds to it, because especially knowing what stuff goes for now, it definitely adds to it. But at the same time, it's super frustrating. Like when signing a couple of the signings that the Hurricanes made in the offseason, like I had a Miller fan reach out and it's like, hey, I want to get a Keandre Miller Hurricanes jersey when it goes. I had like 2 people reach out to me for that. And it's like, cool, I'll let you know if one pops up in a random game day auction at some unknown time. But, so if there's something specific that you're looking for, you don't have, it's a hopeless search in terms of modern stuff. You know what I mean? So that's the real frustrating part of it. But so it's a little bit of both worlds to answer your original question, Paul.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, in your hunt and search for jerseys, you've recently had a really nice find, is the best way to put that. And
yep.
I would kind of like you to tell us a little bit about what was in there. And
yeah,
this is cool. So
yeah. So the story with this is I'm a structural engineer by trade. I do design and inspection of bridges, mostly doing inspections right now. And so I travel all over the state of North Carolina. And so I happened to be out, I think I actually happened to be leaving to go out on one of my couple day long trip, and a couple of jerseys got posted to eBay with weird descriptions, like not stuff that if you had a safe search for something specific might pop up and you recommended, but not something that like it would be like team made Hurricanes jersey Carolina, like just oddly phrased where it wouldn't necessarily pop up specifically. And so I saw those and a couple of them got posted. And then I happened to, on Marketplace, I saw a poster. So I was looking at those, looking at who was listed, and on Marketplace, there was a poster, like a framed autograph poster that also happened to be on that same eBay page. So I reached out to this guy and I was like, hey, like I see you have all these jerseys. Like what's the story with them? Because again, they came out of nowhere. I was like, where are these, like, again, what's the story with them? He's like, he's like, I mainly deal in cards, mostly vintage sports cards. So that's a beautiful jersey, Paul. I just saw the link you sent in the chat. That's awesome.
Sorry, we can talk about that later.
No, you're good. And so he was like, I mainly deal in vintage sports cards, mainly pre-60s, pre-70s. He's like, I have a shop in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's like, but I had a family reach out of someone who was a huge sports collector in general that passed away, and they were looking to just offload this collection of the guy's stuff. The guy died and had multiple storage units just filled with stuff from hockey to baseball, racing, football, anything. And I was like, that's awesome. I was like, what else do you have for Hurricane stuff? I saw you had, I think at that point it was like 3 or 4 jerseys on eBay and like 2 posters. I was like, what else do you have for Hurricane stuff? And he just started listing stuff off. He's like, sticks, gloves. He's like, I have vintage socks, a couple more jerseys, posters, like just like posters, brochures, ticket stubs. He's like, honestly, it's kind of overwhelming. And I was like, would you want to sell that stuff as a lot? I was like, because honestly, at that point, thinking I'd be over my head, but I was like, would you be interested in selling it as a lot? I was like, I know you said you're not super into hockey, you're mainly vintage sports stuff. He's like, honestly, yeah. He's like, that would really help me and help the family, because it sounded like it was like I don't want to say consignment, but it was something like the family sold it to him for cheap. He would sell it, and then the family was still getting some of the money. I don't know exactly, but anyway, he was like, "Yeah, I'll sell it to the lot. Let me get a little bit more about about what I have." He sent the list of jerseys, which included. Whoa, hey, buddy. Sorry, my cat's freaking out. Um, he sent the list of jerseys that because I told him, I was like, I'm mainly interested in like jerseys and sticks, but I'll definitely take a look and probably take the other stuff too, because in posting on Instagram, I have people that collect just random Hurricanes merch and not necessarily game worn. And so he sent the list of jerseys, which included Coffee, Francis, and just a ton of names, like Hall of Fame quality names. And at this point, after I was talking to him, I was already out in my, oh, buddy. Okay. Sorry. I don't know if you guys heard that, but
not the only
No,
one.
you're good.
Yeah.
The animals always run amok on the show.
Yes.
You're good.
And so, he listed all this stuff, listed out some of the other stuff, sent a bunch of photos. And at this point, I was in my Holiday Inn in rural Western North Carolina. And I was like, listen, I know you said you're in Charlotte. I come back. This was on a Monday or a Tuesday. I was like, I come back, depending on how these bridges go, I come back either Thursday or Friday. Like I could swing by Charlotte. I was like, it's kind of out of the way, but I can make it work for what this is. He was like, oh, okay. Where are you for bridge inspections? I told him where I was. He was like, oh, that's 45 minutes for me. Can I just come to your hotel? I was like, yeah. I didn't have a personal car. I had the work truck with, the ladder rack and stuff and tools in the back. And so I was like, yeah. I was like, do you want to meet halfway? I was like, I don't want you to drive 45 minutes. He was like, no, there's a casino out there. I'll go to the Cherokee Casino. He's like, I'll make a trip out of it, go to the Cherokee Casino. All right. And so he gave me a price. I think actually, I don't remember who made the first offer, but he gave me a price that was more than fair. And then showed me I think we just agreed on a price for the jerseys first. And then he was like, I'll bring all the other stuff. You can look through it, either take it or tell me what it's worth and where to sell it, just to kind of help me out. I was like, okay. And so I texted my boss. I was like, hey, I'm meeting a random guy in the Holiday Inn parking lot, the guy that's staying at the hotel with me. I was like, I'm using the work truck. I was like, I'm meeting the guy at this time. If you don't hear from me in, half an hour, 45 minutes, I got kidnapped. And so I go out, wait in the parking lot, and I'm sitting. So there's actually a story within this, but anyway, I'm sitting in the lobby we do our bridge inspections on Surface Pro tablets. And so I'm sitting in the lobby of the hotel working on the Surface Pro tablet. And a group of guys start congregating like the breakfast eating area of the hotel where I'm sitting, and they're all linemen doing work because it's still out in Western North Carolina where the hurricane hit. They're still recovering. They're doing lineman work. And so there's probably 20 to 25 linemen that all met. And so at that point, I, let them have whatever meeting they were having, packed up my tablet, went out to the parking lot, and the guy pulls up, and he's this super tall, buff guy covered in tattoos, pulls up in a Tesla, opens up the back, and the butterfly, or it wasn't, maybe it was butterfly doors, I don't remember, but opens up the doors just filled with boxes. And so we start looking at this stuff, and I do a kind of a quick once over of the jerseys, flip it inside to see where the set tag is. I see the set tags on most of them. I see the wear, and he just starts pulling out other stuff. Like you can probably see the pile of sticks I still have over there. So it pulls out just this, and they were all saran wrapped and taped together where you could only kind of see some of them. And so he pulls all this stuff out, pulls out the boxes, and just has, I don't know if I have any of them accessible. Just starts pulling out stuff, showing me like huge framed prints, and there's skates in there. We have no idea who the skates are because he just opens the box and you can't tell from a quick glance, but he, opened the box, was like, There's skates, shut the box, put it aside, open another box. Oh, there's skates, set it aside, open up another box, and just tons of stuff. And so we're talking about, we had already agreed on a price for all the jerseys. We're still looking at the other stuff. And so it's the Ford F-150 work truck, an empty space, and his Tesla. We're standing kind of behind his Tesla, spilling into the empty space with all these boxes. And towards the hotel, I see this guy, this shirtless guy, walking towards us. And past his Tesla are a couple more work trucks. And so he looked like kind of like a rougher guy. He looked like he was one of the linemen that was in the hotel, which is where they kind of come into play. So I thought he was one of the linemen that was there earlier. And so he keeps walking, and I'm talking with the guy looking through stuff. And he walked past the work trucks, gets to the guy's Tesla, comes towards me and was like, "The fuck was that all about?" I was like, "Excuse you?" He was like, "What was that all about back there?" I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, "I think you got the wrong guy, man. Like I was in there working and I left." He was like, "No, you fucked up my dinner, man." And I was like, I'm sorry, man. I think you got the wrong guy." And he was like, "No, like you fucked up my dinner. Like you're gonna have to pay for that." I was like, "Dude, I you got the wrong guy. I don't know what you're talking about." And then he got up in my face and just started cussing me out, like you calling you the shirtless white guy. He starts using the N word, just cussing me out. He's like, "You fucked up my lunch. You know, you all these cussing me out." He's like, if I had a gun right now, I'd shoot both of you guys." And so I, at that point, put up like a phone thing down by my side to the big, again, dude who's huge, buff, covered in tattoos. So the fact that this scrawny guy is coming up to the two of us is kind of concerning. So I made that sign down by my hip, like, "Hey, call somebody." And then he starts, the guy that came up to us starts spitting. He spit on the guy's car. As soon as he spit on the guy's car, I started picking up boxes and just throwing them back into the guy's Tesla. Like, because I don't want him to either, grab the Ron Francis game worn jersey and book it, or, spit or worse on it. So just start throwing stuff back in the guy's Tesla. This guy's still getting up in my face. I'm like, "Hey, man, like, this is a huge misunderstanding. You need to back off. Like, I don't know what you're trying to do, but you don't need to do this." Guy calls the police. The shirtless guy walks away. And so me and the guy, he gives him the 911 operator, the guy's description. We're just standing there. I was like, "What was that?" He was like, "Yeah, dude, I don't." He was like, "I almost picked up the bundle of hockey sticks and started swinging at the guy." But so finally he walked away. I was like, "Sorry for just throwing stuff in your car." He was like, "No, man, I completely get it." And so as he's, he was finishing up on the phone with the 911 guy, giving description, his name, we see a cop car pull up at the front of the hotel and start talking to the guy. And so after we pack up everything up, I was like, "Hey, like, I still want to do the deal. Like, can we, like, after this is all done, like, I still want to do the deal." He's like, "Oh, no,
Let's
absolutely."
put this on pause and go talk to the
Yeah,
cops and come back.
exactly. He was like, "No, absolutely, man." He's like, "I appreciate you throwing the stuff. I don't know what was about to happen." And so we walk kind of arching around the front of the hotel, kind of taking a wide berth on the cop who's now talking to the shirtless guy. And as soon as, we'd taken a wide berth, as soon as the shirtless guy sees us, he, straightens up and starts walking right toward us. It's like, "Oh, I was wrong." And the cop put his hand on the guy's chest, grabbed towards his hip and was like, "James, you need to back the fuck up." And so he was like, "Actually, James, I'm going to detain you right now." So he cuffed him, threw in the back of the car, and was like, "Are you the guys that called?" Like, "Yeah." Like, "What?" "Yeah." Told him the whole situation. He's like, "Yeah, this is, he's we've had issues with him in the area before. Do you guys want to press charges?" I was like, "No." Like, he's like, "Do you want to press charges for communication of a threat?" I was like, "No." I was like, "You're taking him in for the night, right?" I was like, "I'm staying at this hotel. He now knows my car. I don't necessarily want him to come back." He's like, "Yeah, we're detaining him for the night. He won't get released. We're booking him on trespassing charges for either the Holiday Inn or the drive-through across the street." But then I went back, made the deal with the guy, ending up getting everything. So it turned into a whole adventure. But yeah, so that ended up with. Sorry, that was kind of a long roundabout, but that's a story I can't not tell with with the rest of this.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah. And so went back, took all the stuff back out of the guy's Tesla, made the deal, loaded it up into the work truck. And I took the box of jerseys into the hotel with me because I was like, this is the meat of the deal. I ended up paying a decent amount for the rest of the stuff, but the jerseys is where the value was. So I took the box of that into the hotel with me, and was just looking at it. And I FaceTimed my college roommate, the same one who got me into all of it. I was like, "Hey Max, I'm at a Holiday Inn in Forest City, North Carolina. Look what's on the queen bed across from me," and flipped it, and it was a Francis jersey. He's like, "Oh, you bought like a Francis jersey?" He was like, "Wait a minute." I was like, "What?" Well, yeah, I bought a Francis jersey. He's like, "Is that what? Why the fuck do you have a Ron Francis jersey on your Holiday Inn bed right now?" And I was like, "There's more." I just started pulling out the rest of them, showing him. I was like, "Yeah, I," I was like, "I currently have Hall of Fame caliber jerseys on the queen mattress next to me as I sleep in this random rundown Holiday Inn in rural Western North Carolina." But yeah, so that was one of the all-time fine, and the lot of stuff. A pair of the skates ended up being Ron Francis used skates. It's just majority of the
How many jerseys did you get? Like keeper jerseys, like real good ones.
11, all the jerseys were game used.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think there was either 10 or 11. I don't remember off the top of my head, but either 10 or 11 jerseys out of that lot. Plus it was, I think it ended up being 3 Lowe's boxes. Actually, you can see one of them. Oh, I can't. My cord's plugged in. Never mind. But 3 like decently sized boxes of just random other stuff. The majority of which wasn't game used. It was bobbleheads and signed programs. And actually, one of the weird things was that came with it was 11 of these.
So are you keeping all the jerseys for your collection or have they moved on?
So far, 2 of them have moved on. I traded them with a guy locally for a Hurricanes jersey I've been looking for. And the other ones, I don't know, the Francis and the Coffee, which are obviously the 2 huge ticket items, are 2 jerseys that, I've had people reach out for them, but they're jerseys I know that if I sell or trade down the line, I'm going to look back and kick myself for it. So I keep going back and forth on it. I'm never going to get the opportunity to get these at the price point at which I got them ever again. You know what I mean? And so as much as the stuff that people are offering, I'm conflicted on it, but I'm really leaning towards keeping. But,
I mean, they fit your collection, and
this was the other.
They're high end. You keep them.
Oh wow!
Exactly.
Oh wow! That's
there were 11 of these. This one that I grabbed wasn't autographed, but there's some that are autographed by like the whole team, some autographed by Ron Francis. There's one autographed by the captain, so it's Wesley Brindamore Francis. And so just crazy stuff that I ended up getting from that. But
are there any details on that bottle of who made the wine?
There is on some of them. Yeah, it's some fancy wine. Not on this one. This one, the sticker peeled off.
I was just
but
wondering.
Some of them have a thing on the back.
I was wondering if it was Minor.
I don't know.
Minor used to do a lot of the NHL wines.
Let me see.
They're a local. I guess they're Napa.
Oh, okay.
Awfully good winery.
Oh yeah, here we go. This one's going. This one is the
nice.
team signed one.
Wow.
It says Vinted and bottled by Monterey Cristal Winery in California.
I am not familiar with them. So.
Yeah, but it's numbered out of 100. So this one's the team signed one from the 2002. I think it's the Eastern Conference champions. Oh no, I guess it doesn't say, but just 2001, 2002. And so like a lot of that stuff is, I'll sell it piece by piece, and there's stuff in there that there were boxes of the game day detail posters that they used to give out that, on one side is a picture of Jeff O'Neill and on the other side is both teams' rosters, the time of the game, like stacks of those, like, some guy went and grabbed a stack of them after the game. So stuff like that, or old newspaper articles, or actually underneath me, tons of season ticket member hats, just tons of stuff. And so I called my girlfriend. I was like, how sometimes I find stuff on Facebook Marketplace to buy? She's like, yeah. I was like, the work truck. I was like, I'm not going to the office on my way home. I was like, I have to stop at home to unload 4 boxes of stuff that I spent X amount of money on. And she's like, what? I'm like, I know. I was like, believe me, I know. But it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And, I didn't spend, and I sent her, I'd done research into a couple of the jerseys and sent her links of similar jerseys that have sold. I was like, look, don't be mad at me. Don't make me sleep on the couch. Don't make me sleep in the work truck with, my 10 jerseys and 12 bottles of wine and boxes of programs. I promise. But yeah, it's still, again,
It's a great find.
Yeah, that is an unbelievable find.
Yeah. This was one of the items that was there in it. It's a Gordie Howe signed.
Wow.
And I think it's got G Howe. And I talked with a couple of autograph guys who said the autograph is legit. I don't know if it's like a signature.
So
stick
it's a reproduction stick that the autograph. So like you could, that's a wonderful item.
Cool. I'll take it though. Yeah. But again, stuff like that, there's a Glenn Wesley stick sitting over there. There was a Stahl game used stick. And for whatever reason, 3 of the jerseys were used by David. I don't know how to say his last name, either Tanabe or Tanab. But 3 of the jerseys were his. There was a game used glove of his, like 4 pairs of game used socks. One of the pairs of skates was his. One of the sticks was his. So for whatever reason,
this guy.
They really liked him.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But yeah,
I can only imagine if somebody went to my house and dug through my stuff. They'd be like, man, they really like this Ryan O'Reilly guy.
Right.
Never heard of him.
Yeah. But yeah,
so I'm assuming you asked, did he only have Hurricane stuff in hockey? Or
Well, he had some other sports stuff.
But not hockey.
No, this was the only hockey stuff. He's texted me since of just a couple of random pieces that he found. Like he found a single Jeff O'Neill game used glove because he said there's still. So the story of how he got it was he has, like I said, he has his card shop in Charlotte. He got a call from this family he said he has a work phone number that he has listed on his website just because he gets so many scam calls. And he said he checks it like once a week, which seems. Anyway, so he checked his phone and saw a voicemail from a week ago of a woman being like, hey, like we're family members of this guy. He passed away and has these storage units of stuff. And so he said he called back and they'd said, hey, like we're at the storage units now going through stuff and throwing stuff away if you want to come and get it. And so he said he got there, they had a rolled dumpster and it was already like a quarter of the way full of stuff that they had just started chucking. And so he said he dug through that, took out everything, bought everything from them. But yeah, for hockey stuff, it was just Hurricanes. And then one of the sticks was somebody random. Might have been from like the Flyers, like never played a game for the Hurricanes, but 98% Hurricanes.
That's a little bit scary what you're saying there is we came within an hour or 2 of a coffee game worn jersey ending up in the dumpster. That's our hobby.
Unbelievable. Yeah, but he said he got there, saw what the stuff was, and just like started grabbing stuff out of the dumpster. He said like some of the programs, he had sold a couple like the programs and like original team composite football photos from like the 30s for a couple $100 already on his eBay. He's like, dude, some of the stuff in there is just like rookie cards of baseball players from the 30s, 40s, 50s, just insane stuff that was, a guy had passed and either didn't tell his family what he had or something, care. But yeah, scary stuff.
Oh yes. Wow.
Yeah, I still have the coffee. Actually, it's sitting right here. They did have a lot of, all the jerseys had a lot of what I call spectator wear to them, mustard stains and beer spillage. So they all got washed. But this is the coffee. I don't know. Can I slide this back?
Oh, that's the 99 2000 with all the patches.
Yeah, with the Raleigh inaugural patch and the memorial patch. Where is it? There it is. Memorial patch, game worn and signed.
Wow.
I know signed is a deal breaker to some, but that's how the Hurricanes
not your
do all
choice.
of them.
That's how it came.
Exactly.
Yeah, Tiffany can remove that for you if you want.
Yeah.
So.
And then with the custom crafted set tag. And the Francis one, I believe I photo matched. I had the help of, I can't remember his name now, but we video matched that one to a highlight reel posted from a random game of Francis, based off of one mark, because where was light on that one. But based off of one mark and then the alignment of, some of the letters to the numbers, to the fight strap, to the arm numbers, the alignment of all those, we believe we matched that one to that video. I haven't dug deep into the coffee, but it has decent wear to it. Nothing crazy, but it does have decent wear, and everything else on it matches to what, I don't think it's a custom crafted special or anything, especially knowing the guy said the guy got all this stuff from the in-game auctions that the Hurricanes do. So like that story lined up, the stuff that it was with lines up in terms of season ticket stuff. So like I said, I haven't done a deep dive into photo matching or video matching on the coffee, but it's still mind blowing that I had those on the twin bed next, or the queen bed next to me in a random Holiday Inn.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
That is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask as a final question here, if you could own anything, what would it be? And I think you pretty much already done that.
Yeah, I always find new stuff, but like I said, that Frederick reverse retro Bruins jersey is kind of a sentimental value one to me.
Wade and I have a little bit of a soft spot for him since he's from St. Louis.
St. Louis boy. Yeah.
Yep.
I actually
so that
think
one,
you might outbid me on that one, actually.
On the classic, yeah, I might have. But that one's cool just because I tried photo matching it to pictures that my roommate and I took during the game, but I wasn't able to do that. So that one's cool to me just because, again, that's the game that
that's the one that got you started too.
Exactly. Yeah. It was something to do that year to get my mind off of some other stuff that was happening. I really, really got into hockey, into jerseys, and that is something
like that one made that one's in the right collection.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And it doesn't fit my current collection. I've sold some of the other Bruins jerseys that I've owned, but like that's one that again has that sentimental attachment to it, that it, even though it doesn't fit the collection, it's in the collection to stay, kind of thing. But other than that, maybe a Brindamore game worn would be cool. That's one that wasn't in the lot, unfortunately, but that'd be cool. But other than that, I don't know, stuff always changes. I see so much stuff that pops up. I like prospect stuff of Hurricanes. We have Alexander Nikishin is a player that I'm beyond excited about, that played a couple games for us in the playoffs last year. I have his KHL debut jersey. I have his Team Russia jersey. So I've got some pre-Hurricane stuff of his that I'm hoping he turns into something and, isn't a bust, but that's some stuff I'm excited about. Yeah, I mean, another cool one, not to ramble on, but another cool one is, so I grew up in, like I said, New Hampshire. And so the local team, besides the Bruins, was the Manchester Monarchs. And so as a kid growing up, like that's what they do in elementary school. They have like the Monarchs reading challenge. Like if you read 5 books in the winter, they give you Monarchs tickets. And so that's kind of my first memories of hockey, as being a kid going to Monarchs games. And Tim Gleason, the current assistant coach of the Hurricanes, played for the Monarchs and then played for the Hurricanes. And so that was kind of my connection to them. And I went to the University of New Hampshire for college, which is where I met, my roommates who got me into hockey. And so this was something that was posted randomly on a Facebook page. I think the guy said he found a handful of Monarchs jerseys in like a Canadian secondhand store, and this was one of them. And it's there. They did the New Hampshire Hockey Hall of Fame night, and they were inducting the UNH Wildcats into the Hockey Hall of Fame. And so wore these jerseys kind of inspired by the University of New Hampshire. And this was Gleason's jersey. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, all right, that's something that I need to have, with that New Hampshire collection. It fits into my before they were Canes collections. He's still affiliated with the Canes. And then I just recently picked up the classic purple Manchester Monarchs, which is just such a, it screams early 2000s. Sharp. Yeah, it screams early 2000s sports with the purple and the shiny actual metallic silver and gold and the, shiny metallic letters. So those are some cool ones. But yeah, if I could own anything, like you said, I own a lot of stuff that I never imagined I would have worn when I again started off with a Fanatics breakaway Taylor Hall Bruins jersey and was, beyond excited when I hit 32 of 32 replica made in Indonesia Adidas jerseys. There's a lot in my closet now that if you told me I would have owned then, I would have, yeah, man. But yeah,
Do you collect UNH at all?
I don't, just because they are extremely hard. I'd love to have, I don't have a UNH gamer. That's one I'd like to have. Um, a Brett Pesce UNH gamer was something I was looking for a while when he was on the Hurricanes, but that's nothing that ever popped up. But I've only ever seen older UNH jerseys pop up. I'd love one that I watched play because I watched a lot of Angus Cruikshank is a guy that is currently bouncing back and forth between the AHL and the NHL. That he was the captain of the Wildcats when I went there. So something from that era that I saw on the ice would be that's one I'll say I think would be cool to own is a Wildcats jersey I saw on the ice. I have a photo. We used to go to a ton of the games and just heckle the other team, like just absolutely brutal. And so there's a photo of all of us, like my college roommates, a bunch of the other fans there, all shirtless on the glass, just pounding, and it's Jeremy Swayman in net when he played for the Maine Black Bears. And so, I saw him play. That's the cool part of going to a Hockey East school. I saw Cale Makar score a hat trick against us. Trying to think of who else I saw play, but there's a handful of names. Zegras, I saw Zegras play against us.
Nice.
So that was a cool exposure to, and again, that was even before I get into the NHL thing. That was just, something to have a couple of beers on a random Friday night, take the bus to the arena and heckle the opposing team and go absolutely bananas during the game in the student section. That was before I even knew hockey like I do today. But yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah,
Just to
very
wrap this
cool.
up, Wade, you got any final questions for Logan or any final thoughts?
Oh, Logan, great having you. Congratulations on that fantastic find
Thank you.
and coming such a long way in such a short time in the hobby. So a pleasure to have you, and thanks for taking the time to be with us tonight.
Absolutely.
Paul.
Thank you so much for joining us, Logan. Very interesting show. I love hearing the story about the coffee find and all that.
Yeah.
And I'll just, my usual repeat, get out there to an expo, everyone. We have a
Yes.
lot of ones coming up, and they're starting to hit us fast here in the fall, and we'll keep pushing Vegas, San Jose, and LA for later. So
Yeah,
thank you
that's
very
something
much,
on my bucket
Logan.
list.
One final thing I wanted to mention. It got shared by one of Wade and I's friends, Matt Moffat. It came up in the Calgary Flames fans page today, or yesterday actually. A woman posted, so we acquired half. This is Calgary Flames. We acquired half the team's game-worn helmets from the 2022 season with number 4's gloves. Do you think there's any value here, or should I tell my boyfriend to give them to his kid? The story behind these that she posted, it says they were 1 minute away from being bulldozed over at the dump. My boyfriend had seen the Flames bag when he was unloading, ran over, opened the bag. There was more stuff he couldn't get to before it was gone.
Oh,
Full and she's got pictures, a full Calgary Flames equipment bag. There's a crap ton of the Gatorade brand and towels. There's gloves. And then there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, like 12 or 14 helmets.
Wow.
Of all from the 2022. How in the hell did they end up there?
It
Somebody
makes no
must,
sense because Calgary sells everything. So I mean,
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Wow.
And that's one of the things in our as hobbyists that's always so funny. A lot of times I think we always ask these like whatever happened to questions, and like the unfortunate part of our hobby is, and you even mentioned it, Logan, like when you talk to somebody that works for one of these teams or even equipment people at some level, they don't have an idea what all the stuff that we'd want, right? So when you see that, it makes you think about how many other times stuff that we all wonder where it is actually probably in the bottom of a dump somewhere. Yeah. So kind of crazy.
Wow.
Well, again, Logan, thank you for giving up most of your evening, actually all of your evening tonight, because you're on the East Coast.
I am.
Was excited to have you on and share your story. And again, being another young collector that's jumped in both feet very quickly.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to talk to collectors of different teams and how they have to go through everything. But you are definitely welcome back anytime. And I hope you have a good rest of your weekend or starting of your weekend. And now, I mean, training camp's open. We're into hockey season now.
We're there. Yeah.
Let's go.
So, folks, we will see you back next week. We're working on more guests, sorting stuff out. Paul and I were even messaging back and forth, getting some stuff locked in for future shows. So it will continue to be fun. Again, like, subscribe, share this out to all kinds of people. We do appreciate the support. See you back next week.